Let's talk right now to the man himself, Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson of Louisiana. Mr. Speaker, explain your plan to break up these different foreign aid bills.
Yeah, thanks, Jay. Good to see you. Listen, this is a better policy and a better process, okay? We got the Senate supplemental several weeks back, and it was everything sandwiched together. That's not the way that regular order is supposed to work. And many of my conservative friends, some that you just pictured there, are some of the most vocal advocates for the regular process of the House. And that means that we look at things in single subject. We look at them individually on their own merits. And so I made the decision that we should break this into 4 parts so that you evaluate Israel and Ukraine and the Indo-Pacific funding measures, and then our separate national and foreign aid responsibilities separately. So there's 4 separate bills. Everyone would be able to give it an up or down vote based on their own merits, and that's what they desire. Now listen, we made a better product as well, because there is Ukraine, as you know, is controversial. What we did, Jake, in this package, we changed it. 80% of the spending for Ukraine is replenishment of American weapons and stocks. That's a really important thing for our own U.S. industrial base and defense base, and that's going to be a very important part of it. And we added other innovations that conservatives like and that make good sense. I mean, for the Ukraine piece, for example, any assistance that goes for governmental aid is converted to a loan. That's what a lot of people said was very important, and we implemented that. You know, there's a lot of innovations here, and I think it's a better product in the end.
So I guess one of the things that some of these Republicans are upset about is that they also want border security to be attached to that. Now, you're going to put forward a border security bill, although I don't think it's been released yet. Yeah. But answer their question as to why it's not part of this.
This is very simple. I'm operating with the smallest margin in U.S. history. I have a 1-vote margin, Jake. So in order to get something into this underlying package, we have to have the votes on the floor to pass a rule. You know, that's how the process works here. The rule allows for the substantive bill to be put on the floor. I don't have all my Republicans who agree on that rule, and that means the only way to get a rule on the floor is that it requires a couple of Democrats. Well, they're not for the border security. That's not their policy. Some of these folks like open borders. That's what their votes show and indicate. And so we don't have a way, I literally don't have the numbers, I don't have a way to merge it together. So we're running 2 separate packages. The border security measure is an absolutely critical one. It has changes for reinstating remain in Mexico, ending catch and release, the asylum reform, the parole reform, even rebuilding the wall. Those are key priorities that would keep America safe. The Republican Party, the House Republicans, have been using that, working on it every day, this Congress, every single day, and we'll continue to, and that's our priority, and I think it shows the contrast between our side and the other side.
So I understand what you're doing, breaking up these foreign aid packages, Ukraine, Taiwan, Israel, letting the House work its will, and then sending over to the Senate into one bill, whatever passes. Why didn't you do this months ago? I mean, Ukraine is desperate for aid.
Yeah, they are. Well, it takes a long time to socialize and build consensus when you have the smallest majority in U.S. history, so that's part of it, and it's very practical politics here. But also, we've had other big lifts in this Congress. As you know, we had to get the government appropriations bills done, and then we had to do the renewal of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, and some pretty heavy measures, and it was a lot to handle at one time. Look, we know what the timetable is. We know the urgency in Ukraine and in Israel, and we are going to stand by Israel, our close ally and dear friend, and we're going to stand for freedom and make sure that Vladimir Putin doesn't march through Europe. These are important responsibilities. A strong America is good for the entire world. Since World War II, really, the responsibility for the free world has been shifted onto our shoulders, and we accept that role. We're an exceptional nation. We're the greatest nation on the planet, and we have to act like it. And we have to project to Putin and Xi and Iran and North Korea and anybody else that we will defend freedom. It doesn't mean boots on the ground. We're not the world's policemen, but we're going to do the right thing. And I think the Congress is going to take an important stand here.
So some of your colleagues are blasting your plan to separate the bills. Here's a little sampler that we presented and prepared for you.
It's surrender. It's disappointing. I won't support it. It's disappointing. It's completely detached from what our base wants, what our voters want.
Well, go ahead, move it. I mean, I'm a voting no. I'm voting no. I've never voted to give any money to Ukraine, and I'm not going to do it today.
I'm absolutely disappointed.
I don't know how long people are going to tolerate this because he's doing nothing but serving the Democrats.
All right, I'm sure you know those voices, but it's Gates, Crane, Nels, Burleson, and of course Marjorie Taylor Greene. Are you going to have to rely on Democrats to pass the rule in order to bring these bills to the floor, and also the legislation itself?
Well, I hope not. I hope that our Republican colleagues will stand together, stick together on this. I think we understand, look, I'm a child of the 80s. I regard myself as a Reagan Republican. I understand the concept of maintaining peace through strength. That's one of our guiding principles. It's a really important philosophy, and it's a big part of our party and our worldview. And I think here is an opportunity to make that stand at a really critical time in world history. I mean, there are global implications to what we do. So, look, everybody can grumble about details of the legislation. What I remind my friends, and everybody you just showed are all good friends, listen, we're not going to get 100% of what we want right now because we have the smallest majority in history, and we only have the majority in one chamber. The Republicans run the House. We have the small majority in the House. The Democrats are in charge of the Senate and the White House. So by definition, we won't get everything we want, but we got a great product here at the end, much better than the alternative that came in the Senate supplemental. And now everybody gets to vote their conscience, up or down. That's what we're for, regular process, regular order, and accountability to the people. And I think you'll see that here this week.
So Marjorie Taylor Greene, who has emerged as perhaps your chief nemesis in the House Republican Conference, is promising that this motion to vacate, to get rid of you, will happen. And I'm wondering, have you talked to Democrats at all about if that happens, and if some of these Republicans vote to remove you as Speaker, and this is not a hypothetical, it looks like this actually might happen, will Democrats vote to keep you as Speaker?
I've not asked any Democrats to get involved in that. I believe the House will do its will. Look, I'm trying to govern and lead this institution at a very interesting, unprecedented time. We have challenges right now that no previous generation has faced. Newt Gingrich posted a few days ago on social media, the Speaker's job is effectively impossible now. He said that I'm doing the hardest job that maybe it has ever been in the history of the U.S. House. Maybe, he said, arguably since the Civil War. Why? Because we live in a very divided time, very divisive politics, in the age of social media and 24-hour news cycle, where everybody can express their opinions every moment of the day about things they're disgruntled about. It makes a lot of challenges, but we're going to get through this. Listen, we are the greatest nation in the history of the world, okay? We are going to show that. We're going to keep the train on the tracks and not get derailed and get involved in all of this at such a dangerous time on the world stage. And look, I don't walk around thinking about the motion to vacate. It's a procedural matter here that I think has been abused in recent times. Maybe at some point we change that. But right now, I got to do my job. And so do all my colleagues, and I'm confident at the end of the day, in spite of all the drama and all the palace intrigue, I think we're going to get that done.
Well, if they bring the motion to vacate forward, there aren't 218 or whatever Republicans to remove you. Somebody's going to need Democrats. I mean, it's only going to happen, whatever the outcome is, that person will need Democrats. So if you win and keep your job, if there is a motion to vacate, it will be with Democratic support, or these people who are, who rebelled against Kevin McCarthy and thought voting with Democrats was the worst thing in the world, will also use Democratic votes.
Jake, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm not focused on that. I'm focused on doing my job. Look, when you do the right thing, you let the chips fall where they may. I mean, that's my life philosophy, and that's how I govern here every single day. We try to get the best possible outcome for the American people, to move the ball forward for the American people. And I've got to stay focused on that every day and not all the drama. That's my answer.
So there's another player here that we haven't talked about, Donald Trump, who you support for president. Mm-hmm. I want to play some of what he said last night when he was asked if he plans to protect you from any sort of motion to depose of you by the far right. Take a listen.
President, how should Israel protect Speaker Johnson?
Well, we'll see what happens with that. I think he's a very good
Did he brief?
We'll see what happens with that. I think he's a very good person. Have you talked to Trump about this plan, this legislative plan, in terms of how you're introducing these foreign aid bills? And ultimately, will he have your back?
Oh, I think he will. I was just with him on Friday down at Mar-a-Lago, and we had dinner together, and my wife was with me, and we had a great visit. We talked about a lot of things, all the politics going on in the country, and he said at a press conference we had there together that I'm doing a very good job, and he supports me and all of that. Listen, I think this is all going to work out. I think it's going to be fine. I did tell the president the plan on all of this, and I think he clearly understands why we're running this play and why we need to do this. I think this sets up the next election election, the next administration, the next president, and I believe he's going to win, in a better position. I think that President Trump is strong enough that he could enter the world stage and broker a peace deal in Ukraine if Russia is still advancing at that time. I mean, I think he has the strong enough hand to be able to do that, and that's why this election is so important. There's a very stark contrast. We didn't have all these global conflicts. We didn't have hot wars around the globe when Donald Trump was the president. You know why? Because our adversaries feared him and respected him. They don't fear and respect Joseph Biden, and that's a real problem for all of us.
So let me just ask one quick question about policy. If Donald Trump does win, and if the Republicans keep the majority, will you bring the national abortion ban up for a vote?
I don't even know what you're talking about, national abortion ban. No. Listen, President Trump has said this very well. Look, I'm pro-life personally, but I have 434 colleagues. You have to build a political consensus after cultural consensus. Breitbart famously observed that politics is downstream from culture, and there is no consensus at the moment on what to do at the federal level. So that's not on the legislative agenda. That's not something that's being planned. I think President Trump's spoken very clearly about that. Our individual views are individual views, but we have a lot of work to build a cultural life, to go out as a party, because we believe in that, to speak to that issue and to support families and young mothers who are in unplanned pregnancy situations, and to support those who are in need. That's a role that, by the way, is cross-cultural. I mean, we need to do that through the churches, through our communities, at the state level, the local level. All of us have a role to play, and I think that's the important thing that we'll focus on in the days ahead.
You said you didn't know what I meant by a national abortion ban. I meant the Life Begins at Conception Act, which you are a co-sponsor of. But let's move on, because I just have this last question. I know you got a lot to do in terms of the cat herding you need to do. You have called it absurd that your job is on the line for merely allowing votes on legislation. I wonder if you ever look at this swirl of chaos that you are now in the center of. The members of Congress who think they live in a world where they don't have to compromise with Democrats, even though Democrats control the Senate and control the White House. These individuals who, many of whom seem to say things like calling you a Democrat. Marjorie Taylor Greene called you a Democrat. Opinions based not in reality. I wonder how much you look at that, and you wonder if you contributed to it in any way.
That's a good question, Jake. You and I have known each other a long time. I think we go back maybe 20 or 25 years. And
we do.
I'm a lifelong conservative. You know my whole record. But I'm also, I believe what Mike Huckabee said one time. He was running for governor of Arkansas. He said, I'm a conservative, but I'm not mad at anybody about it. I mean, that's my philosophy, right? What I try to do as a freshman in Congress, I came in the same time Donald Trump did in 2017. The first thing I did here was I authored what I call the Commitment to Civility. I founded the Honor and Civility Caucus. We had a huge group of, I think, 168 Republicans and Democrats. Everybody from John Lewis to Paul Ryan on the other side, who signed on to that commitment, and it said, you know what, we're going to treat one another with dignity and respect. We can disagree on philosophy and policy, and we will, because that's kind of part of the process here. We don't hate each other. Everybody in this building is a fellow American. I consider them colleagues and friends. I mean, I have vehement disagreements with my colleagues on the other side on the ideas and the legislation, but I don't hate anybody. I mean, we're supposed to regard one another as Americans and honor one another with dignity and respect. I think that's a human quality. I think it's about human dignity at the end of the day, and I think that's what we ought to advance here. And it saddens me that the institution has devolved to where it is, but I think we can bring it back. I'm an optimist, Jake. I always have been.
Good luck with that, sir, and thank you so much for dropping by. House Speaker Mike Johnson, Republican of Louisiana. It's good to see you.